Dishonored has been an interesting game for me. It's been a game on its way to be a classic, if it isn't one already. It has been an honored part of the stealth game and immersive sim conversations for over a decade now. I never quite managed to love this game, but there is no doubt that I would not have gotten into many of my favorite games if I didn't play Dishonored back when I did. Often credited with bringing back the immersive sim design philosophy to AAA gaming, spearheaded by the brilliant Arkane studios. And while their new games, Deathloop and Redfall, do carry this DNA to an extent, I think Arkane's pure single-player immersive sim experiences are over, or at least on pause for now. I don't resent this new direction, but I also don't care for it. Oh, oh. Anyway, so after playing well over a dozen immersive sims and many more stealth games since my first playthrough of Dishonored, I finally revisited the game as I was in the mood for some stealth action. Before I proceed, this video has some visual spoilers of later levels and I do talk about some of the later missions, but heavy story discussions is in the later parts.
The plague has taken so many, and we must find a cure. When you are near, my heart is at peace.
Dishonored's opening does not make a strong impression. It's hard to recall a single line from it, and I just replayed the game. The intro is a bit on the slower side if it was meant to put the player into the action fast, but also not nearly long enough for the player to form a meaningful connection with either the Empress or Emily. I would say the decision of making Corvo a silent protagonist is also partly to blame, as even a few sentences exchanged between the characters, if done well, can do a really good job of showcasing their relationship or building up a character dynamic. Even the dramatic scene where the Empress is being attacked is stopped multiple times with back-to-back tutorial pop-ups. Corvo rushes to fight the attackers, but the Empress is murdered. Emily is kidnapped and Corvo is captured.
Take him.
This harsh start might have been a bit unfair to Dishonored cause in one way the game does make a great first impression, the art style. Dishonored still looks phenomenal. There's a visual cohesion from the architecture to the lighting to the effects. The game is just a joy to look at. The game takes place in the industrial city of Dunwall, a place modeled after late 19th century and early 20th century London and Edinburgh. The visual design director Victor Antonov and the game's art director Sebastian Mitten visited these cities, taking photographs of people and places with a distinct focus on side street and alleyways, shady corners of a big metropolis with all its perils. What separates Dishonored from its real-life inspiration is its thriving whale oil industry and the inventions of the natural philosopher Anton Sokolov, which are powered by this whale oil. Antonov has said, "I created a whole new design language. This is a steampunk Victorian world, but it has no rivets, no brass, no copper and no tubes. It has heritage and influences, but it is its own thing." The tone of the game is dark, gloomy and oppressive, with the air being pierced by loud announcements commanding everyone to follow orders or prepare to lose their life and property.
What a mess.
It's clear that the city has fallen under a tyrannical rule, as the thing that breaks the silence in the city are the piercing announcements ordering, warning and threatening all the people.
Attention, Dunwall citizens. This district is now under a mandatory whale oil ban. Compliance will be strictly enforced.
Then there's the plague ravaging the population and spreading everywhere through either the victims or the rats, a disease that feels like a force of nature, a storm you cannot protect yourself from. A morbid picture is painted by it. Places that should be thriving are empty as the streets are littered by bodies and plague-carrying rats that can strip humans to the bones no matter if they're dead or alive. And the late-stage plague victims who now lurk in the bleak corners wishing for help or attacking anyone that goes near. It's an environment where only the corrupt, the rich and violent seem to thrive. Parts of the city may be dying or dead, but the decadently decorated red light district thrives and the parties still continue. These places contrast the greater city. Visually it's colorful in a way that it doesn't take away from the atmosphere of a dying city, but the lavishly decorated parts of the ridge stand out well. Even the flooded district, which is intentionally a sickly green, dying and drab place, the walls are splattered with light blue fluorescent whale oil, maybe the brightest thing in the game itself. A drowning city is a memorable setting in and of itself. These other details go the extra length of immersing, or should I say, submerging the player in the world. The gorgeous art direction makes sure that no place in the game is bland. Every corner is worth exploring just to see more of the world. The imposing structures and height of the surrounding also fills with a bit of awe looking at what needs to be conquered. Every area of the map, while maintaining a theme, has been mapped into my head due to the visuals alone. It also helps that the movement in the game is very smooth. The movement overall feels very weighty while at the same time quick and responsive. Though the star of the show is definitely Blink. It's a power that completely changes how you look at the map. With Blink you look up, notice the gaps and ledges that are available only for you and the rats. Blink is the one thing that I would say that makes the gameplay of Dishonored what it is. It makes it so much more fun to move around in the whole level and has always defined how I play this game. Though I will say Blink, especially the upgraded version, is a bit too powerful. It's easy to just move around levels without care, as you can move all over the place above enemies without any fear of being caught. In fact, you don't even have to care about the population in most places, to the point that there were 2 levels I actually ghosted without even trying to go for a ghost run or having to be very careful sneaking around. The way the levels are designed kinda trivializes the stealth. I played on very hard, and considering enemies never really look up, the higher awareness they have really does not matter at all. Not true for literally every single encounter of course, but with the exception of the loyalist level, most levels of the game can be navigated with no pressure. It's not really just the level design that makes Blink too strong. Like, if you move up high, most enemies just cannot hit you. Even on very hard, they lack reliable accuracy. So moving around just a bit means avoiding attacks, as they don't really shoot and attack the player constantly. In general, Dishonored stealth is alright. With higher difficulties, I have never noticed the stupid guard phenomena, where guards miss the most obvious noises and don't see you looking straight in their direction. And the thing is that they will chase and hunt the player but also forget about you in what I would consider a pretty reasonable time. Though they aren't really that reactive to changes in the environment as much as something like Thief 2 or Splinter Cell Chaos Theory guards. They won't notice doors open or objects misplaced. You can freely turn off arc pylons or walls of light, and the guards will keep thinking about whiskey and cigars instead. Another thing that affects the stealth in this game is that the sound design is poor. The sounds themselves I have no issue with, but it's extremely difficult to gauge the distance and direction of guards in this game. It's annoying when I jump at nothing because of a random footstep sound or look in to see guards right next to me which I couldn't tell. I didn't take the dark eye power this time around because I find it more fun to just rely on what's on screen and what I hear to figure out where the guards are, how many there are, and where the wires and connections lead. But considering how inconsistent the sound design is, sometimes the power feels like a way to mask that. Having the power just removes the scouting steps for me, which I do enjoy. Hell, I have noticed it's hard to gauge how much noise I am making in this game. There's not that much to tell if I am making sounds that could be heard 50 meters away or tiptoeing around. I do like the general ambient sounds. The effects of using powers are nice, if not all that memorable, which is probably the common element of Dishonored sound design. It's not overall that memorable. Same goes for the music. It's pretty generic suspense builder which works well enough for the game. A violin heavy score that adds a bit of unease, but I don't actually remember much of it. The music never heightened my senses or gave more depth to a scene for me. But hey, I can't talk too much shit about a game that ends with a great vocal track. Not now, this video still has a lot left. Goes for all abilities are also powerful. The difficulty you play on genuinely does not matter at all. Now it will be stupid to say the difficulty setting changes nothing, cause you can put yourself in a bad position and die fast in higher difficulties, but that's not really a huge issue if your main focus is sneaking around. Without the player being vulnerable at any point, it feels like I'm holding myself back when I'm playing the game. Sneaking through the level cause I am protecting everyone in the level against overwhelming odds. That is me. Not because I am in any danger behind enemy lines myself.
I am the danger.
And this problem is enhanced by the fact that you can use this power more or less limitlessly, cause Pierrot's remedy, which gives you your mana to use these powers, is available everywhere. I never ran out of it. Now people do enjoy this power fantasy, but it's just not for me. It cheapens the stealth for me when I know I can just brute force the whole thing as well. And then with the powers you have, you can just straight up destroy groups of enemies no problem. The few times the game did give me a handicap offensively I enjoyed a lot, namely during the start of the game and in the flooded district. It's one of the reasons I really like the tall boys as enemies. They are hard to kill. With their height they will notice you even when high up, which makes them really formidable enemies. I love the challenge they bring looming over the areas. But there's another reason to sneak around in the game, the chaos system. There's an argument to be made for someone disliking black and white morality systems in general. And I would have loved to have a more complex system in the game, taking in mind how you deal with characters you're well tasked to deal with. But I will play the outsider's advocate and defend the chaos system. While mechanically not as fleshed out as I would have liked, narrative wise the system makes perfect sense. Are you the Corvo that people actually fear, or are you someone who has been dishonored and is only fighting back against the injustice? The chaos system has a lot of wiggle room. It's not like you will get high chaos cause you accidentally killed 2-3 guards in a level or because you decided to kill your targets. You have to eliminate a large percentage of the population. In fact, you have to often go out of your way to kill people in the level to get high chaos, or just leave stealth behind entirely. I do not get the complaint people have with the systems because of this. Like, the game does give you enough maneuvering room so that you can experiment and come out safely if it goes bad. But if you go on a killing spree, like you want to single-handedly break the Geneva Convention, then why are you surprised that the game calls you out for it? You have proven without a doubt that you are the monster everyone around you feared and suspected you to be. And well, if you are not in the mood for being lectured, just embrace it. Fly with your edgy cape and the bodies of everyone you slaughtered below you. Like, the high chaos ending is cool in its own right. But my point is that the game is not unfair in how it treats the player, and the way these two different playstyles change the world around you and the story and interaction in small but meaningful ways is done really well. But the game never actually informs you how much leeway you have in terms of this, playing the game in an overly safe and in a less exciting way because you didn't want to get a high chaos situation. But you don't accidentally get high chaos in this game. Though it's not without its issues either. Let's start with the worst, most discussed one. Lady Boyle. Apparently kidnapping her to be taken to Lord Brisby, who is in quote-unquote love with her, is the best option. I mean, I don't think I have to go into details for why this is bad. It's just needless age, where other similar options in the game felt like characters getting what they deserve. I point this out because the game generally does a great job with these resolutions, where they feel deserved and almost poetic in a sense. I really like the missions in this game. Every corner of the world is dense in a way that no wrong turn away from the objective in the level feels wasted. Moving to an alley across the map and coming across a group of overseers threatening people or even just an outsider's shrine. There's something to overhear, see or read everywhere. Some optional areas can be the most fun parts of the map. Optional dialogue, the most interesting. It is entirely possible to ignore both Slackjaw and Granny Rag and miss out on what I consider to be the best subplot in the game. This is even better with quest markers turned off, which makes all the discoveries more rewarding, as it feels like your exploration bears fruit as you move around gaining info on your targets, how they have set up security around them or the world in general. The game, for the majority of it, does an amazing job of guiding the player around where to go, what to do without markers. That, along with the world, makes the whole thing feel incredibly immersive. There's hidden bone charms which you can use for small bonuses and runes which you can use to upgrade your powers. In fact, the main way you get this is exploration. Other than that, there's so many great convos. Not only do they point to some code or quest, there's some great world building in these moments. And these interactions, especially outside the Houndspit's pub, adds to the feeling that these guards and people exist with their own thoughts. Well, almost. But it got so annoying hearing guards gathering for whiskey and cigars all the time and the same repeated convos over and over again, where any statement, often followed by normal conversation, ends with a guard saying something on the lines of fuck off. It's just genuinely weird and slightly immersion breaking at times, but I wonder if the guards would have been better without these small sentences. I just entered the district and murdered the guy you were supposed to protect. You are not getting your fucking squad. One of my favorite quests in the game only happens when you want to deal with the Pendletons without killing them. Slackjaw asks you to go collect the code for the art dealer's safe, which the thugs he controls just cannot open. So you get the code from the art dealer himself. And how do you do that? By shocking him in his king's chamber, of course. The best part is that I only figured out I can check what's in the safe myself after telling Slackjaw the code, and what happened was as I was clearing out the safe, 3 of Slackjaw's goons appeared on their way to collect it since they now have the code. This moment was great. Missions optionally evolving like this is easily my favorite part of the game. Though sometimes turning off quest markers causes a bit of an issue. For example, I had always trouble locating Havelock and gang after missions. The game never points where they could be, and I more or less looked around the entire area for them each time. Or this random unassuming magic dumpster, which is the only way to sort the body of the unconscious Carno and save him. I am just a bit disappointed that these did not actually play into how the game's story progresses and ends. I would have hoped they would have a much larger impact on the ending of the characters, though I can forgive it for not implementing what would unquestionably be a really complicated system. The story itself is generally predictable and the character writing is pretty flat throughout the whole story. There aren't any lines that stuck out to me as particularly interesting or fun. Not much of any memorable character dynamics implied with the writing. Not really for the lack of trying, however. Like how we see Piero sneaking around creepily looking at Callista or Cecilia gaining courage as the game goes on. It's not really done in a way that sticks out as something that connected with me on a level where they felt human, or humans I understood or saw tick. People like Anton Sokolov, the brilliant natural philosopher, bringing in a new age in Dunwall with his genius. Your assassination targets from the corrupt High Overseer Thaddeus Campbell to Pendleton Brothers. A lot of the characters in Dishonored are so much more interesting on paper than they are when you are talking to them in the game. The dialogue doesn't work even for characters I think are really interesting with the part they play. Hardam Burrows could have been a great villain, a power-hungry, corrupt and cruel man acting with impunity, a man whose monstrous idea of eliminating poverty is systematically eliminating the entire population of poorer district by infecting them with a deadly plague. But again, like all the villains in the game, he lacks charisma to make him truly compelling or even someone you love to hate. The worst, however, are the final people you face. The early loyalist organizers as they go power hungry and kidnap Emily. It felt pretty inevitable, but it being so predictable and the characters involved in it lacking any flair when they are on screen, I was left with an overwhelming sense of meh. I also wanted a bit more of the supernatural things in missions. I haven't talked about the outsider so far, but him looming over the events in the background, talking as if we are a curious character in a story, is interested in seeing how it progresses, and that's why he gave you the mark. The supernatural surrounding gives everything in the game an uneasy tint, especially since it starts with the Empress murdered by foes Corvo couldn't possibly have stopped. We don't see much of it, however, and it doesn't really play into proceedings that much, with the sole exception of the flooded district level. Here we face another one with the mark, the one who killed your love, the Empress of Dunwall. Daud, easily the most interesting presence in the story. The one thing I did experience for the first time was the DLCs. They are great, starting with the Knife of Dunwall. I was excited to put myself in Daud's shoes. He had always been the most interesting character in the base game for me. Daud is at a crossroads in his life. He has lived an amoral life. But as it stands, after killing the Empress, he isn't quite sure of what he's done, probably for the first time in his life. A sinking feeling that what he did wasn't right. It was wrong in deeper ways than just a normal murder. Daud's dilemma of deadly death dealer for most of his life, but with constant warnings of the destruction he has caused catching up to him. Should he go on as he always has, or should he find a new way to move forward? That is what the DLC sets up. Daud for me shows that you can have a character make his own choices that gives both the player agency and feels like a real actual established someone. And the game itself starts with a cryptic hint from the outsider, just the name Delilah, and with this, and with the help of his right-hand woman, Billy Lark of Dishonored, and the game itself starts with a cryptic hint from the outsider, just the name Delilah, and with the help of his right-hand woman, Billy Lark of Dishonored Death of the Outsider fame. The missions in these two DLCs are some of the very best in the game as well as the series, with some parts being even more visually spectacular than anything in the base game. The mission takes place in a whaling area. Crawling into an area from under these giant whales, blood and gore dripping from their bodies, covering the whole place. It's a mixture of gross cruelty and awe. Throughout the game, you can read how the whale oil is harvested, and it's always a pretty inhuman method which we see here. There's a jump in difficulty from the main game, with much harder enemies and layout. such that just blinking around carelessly will put you in a lot of danger. The first mission itself, choosing between a cruel and powerful owner of the slaughterhouse, Bundry Rothwild, trying to suppress a strike by torturing workers, and an undercover agent for Bundry's rival in business who organized said strike and wants to blow up the whole place, including the goons that Bundy has hired. This is what I love the most about Dishonored, and from the first mission, the game provides that. All the missions in these two DLCs are interesting in one way or another, either narratively or display some amount of creativity that I love. The DLC 1 ends on an overseer attack on Daud's base, organized by Billy Lurk and Delilah. Billy Lurk felt that Daud's grip was weakening, and considering his mental uncertainty at the coming events, she saw this as a chance to take out Daud and become the leader herself. But Daud wasn't going down like that. He had to track down Delilah and figure out his final mission. Eliminating or letting Billy Lurk go is the final thing you do. Whatever you do, Delilah still looms over the events of Dunwall. The second DLC, I will say, is not as well constructed mission to mission as the first one, but it's still pretty good. As we reach Delilah, we learn that she means to take over Emily's body by the means of some ritual, and the only one who knows about her and can save Emily is Daud himself. The concept of Daud saving the princess he once kidnapped from a threat that no one other than him would know existed, let alone be able to stop. It's kind of poetic that after a life of infamy, his one effort to make something right is something that will never bring him any fame. He now waits patiently for Corvo. How Corvo will judge him, well, that depends on Daud himself.
I'm ready for what comes.
Sir?
What is it?
I just wanted to say, congratulations on getting your own squad.